Lubavitch.
Sorry, sort of.
And they used to go there. So when he went there, who do you think you were dealing with? With farmers. Okay. He was not dealing with this refined Chabad scholars. So when he came back to the Mittel Rebbe, he asked them, he told them, was like, but they don't understand what I'm teaching. Like they don't get it. Okay. And that's what the Rebbe said. Okay, you still continue teaching because Neshama understands. So we're all in it together. We all don't understand fully what's going on in first chapter, in second chapter. And I mean, we're trying our best to make as much sense as possible, as much structure as possible. But there's always an element that we completely don't understand. And that's okay. We're involved in this because this is the avodah that the Rebbe told us to do, that this is avodah samoichin, that's going to help us conquer Eretz Yisrael in a peaceful way. Keni Knezi and Kadmani and all those beautiful things. So we are all in it. So it's nobody it's not either everything or nothing. It doesn't work like that. Right? Even the conquering of the land, it was okay. Slowly, you chase away the other nation. Slowly, we chase away all the Goyish perceptions that we believe, are true. It's one thought at a time. Yeah, so the process of Avodah Samoichin is not like, okay, now I do Avodah Samoichin and now I live my world. No, it doesn't work like that. It slowly infiltrates into your psychic and changes you from within. Because that's the Geula process. Geula unfolds through us. So I wouldn't say like, no, if you don't come prepared for this class, you don't belong here. This is absolutely not what the message of this class. We don't understand everything ourselves. So it's not like, there are some basics that, knowledge base. We're actually talking with Naria, and, I think it's important to know so we can appreciate this and we could move forward that if a person has time. If you don't have time, by all means, that's not our place, to say, no, you either know everything or you can't be here. That's not the goal at all. If you're asking if you're going to benefit from it, for sure, everybody benefits from bits of Chassidus. Everybody. Obviously,
but I'm just saying there are two kavanas. One is I want, let's say, one of my kavanas would be I want to get to know Hashem, right? I want to get to know Hashem. The other kavana is forget about me. I'll know Hashem. I will know Hashem. I'm what I am, but I want to conquer Keni Knezi V'Kadmaini. So there are two different kavanas. One is like, will I benefit and get to know Hashem better if I'm doing it as it says Bavaras Ayin? Not a whole lot. But the question is, and again, I don't think there's an answer. The question is, like, what percentage? If we could do it with a machine, imagine, which we can't. When I'm just like kind of hanging on and listening to whatever they're saying, how much am I going to get to know Hashem? Probably not maximum amount, or like, quite a fairly small amount. But the question is, and there's no answer, how much, when I'm just hanging on the call, I'm sorry, they're doing construction here. It's interesting. Okay, it's supposed to be a summer vacation. How much, when I'm just hanging on the call, me getting to know Hashem, probably not greatly. It's better than nothing. It's better than, watching TV, you know what I'm saying? But how much am I conquering Eretz Yisrael when I'm just hanging on the call? And I'm sort of, unfortunately, my approach is almost like Tirsa, like I'm not doing,
yeah. Mila, can we start moving into, the class, and I'll try to answer that question within a particular context.
Sure.
So, okay. So hopefully some aspect of that question will be answered. I think that, based on some of the discussion last week, first of all, I kind of want to apologize. I hadn't eaten for many hours because we were fasting and maybe was a little bit more irritated than necessary. But I wanted we want to take two approaches to the learning that we're doing. The one is, as you know, we're discussing here, if you're doing Iyun into this. And so I just want to share with you what the previous Rebbe and what the Mittler Rebbe says about what will happen when you do Iyun. So let's just have a look. These are just definitions of the Hitbonenut process. And hopefully this will answer the question being asked. So, and this is actually in chapter 1. The Mittler Rebbe says, in essence, Hitbonenut is the matter of gazing strongly into the depths of a concept, keeping one's mind upon it for long periods until he understands it thoroughly in all of its particular parts and details. This is the inner aspect of the faculty of Bina. And the previous Rebbe, he speaks a lot about this Iyun process. And he says, he really says there are a few stages in it, which we know. You know, we know that there are these 3 stages in Bina, the Bina of Bina, the Rochav of Bina, and the Omek of Bina. So he says the way to reach Iyun is through habituating yourself to focus on one idea with great depth and focus for a long hour. And after you know the concept well, until it's clear to you in all of its details and you can speak about it at length, then dafka, gaze on it in depth with intellectual effort. So there's this process, once you know the material very well, to gaze at it. And then this Iyun, this process of gazing, will bring you to the unity of your consciousness with the concept. And then you will find the delight of your soul through the unification of your intellect and the concept itself. So then you come to this experience of a deep oneg, because you're transcending the information and you go from information to transformation, let's say. And then there's another definition. It's pretty much the same. So that's what will happen if one goes into the deep Iyun process. You come to the point where you reach the oimek of Bina, the oimek hamusag, and you transition into another paradigm completely. And you begin to touch something that's beyond the Iyun process, but the Iyun process will get you there. Now, I think for me, I understand that there are some people, a couple people maybe in this group who are able to or want to do this level of Iyun. And, as we learned in paragraph 2, when you do this repetition, so then you have tvuna, you really know it so well that somebody can wake you up at 2 a.m. and say to you, like, what happens in the Rochav of Chochmah, and you'll be able to know, because it's ingrained. It's not just settled. But the majority of people, we're not necessarily there for whatever reason, and it doesn't matter. So, what we have been doing, and what we'd like to do here as well, is to include some of the Iyun process into the class, meaning that, like we did with chapter 2, the last few classes of chapter 2, the first half hour was really beginning that Iyun process of asking questions and you doing the work on your own. So it seems apparent that in order to understand the Mittler Rebbe's chapter 1, what we have to have a solid grasp of Reb Hillel's chapter 1, because after all, that's the purpose of Reb Hillel's chapter 1, is to give us the background knowledge so that you can then go and read the Mittler Rebbe and understand it. And I think what I saw happening last week was that because most of us have forgotten some of the primary concepts in chapter 1, so reading the Mittler Rebbe is then just like confusing. So what we thought we would do is take like maybe half an hour now. I'm going to put some questions about Reb Hillel's chapter 1. It's not to go back into the details, but just to say, this is the skeleton. This is the basic knowledge base that you need to have in order to say that you have a grasp on it, even not to do the iyun, but just to, you know, build your you know, the terminology, to just basically understand the most basic concepts. So I'm going to share, let's see, I'm sharing it here. No, that's not what I wanted to share. So I'm going to put the link. So the link is on the WhatsApp group for this worksheet. And you can see it basically just takes us through Chochma, Bina, Das, Koach HaMaskil, Hamakas Das, Ma'amik, and we'll see how far you get. Now, I would recommend that you use the English translation that was also posted on the WhatsApp group. Does anybody need me to post this in the chat? Or it's okay to take it from the WhatsApp group?
Tova would need this to be shared into the chat, because if she's on a phone, she won't be able to see anything.
And she doesn't have WhatsApp? Okay.
I have WhatsApp. I have WhatsApp.
Okay, so it's on the WhatsApp group. There's a link to this document. So we're going to take, you know, the next half hour and just go back into this, and then we'll go back into the Mittel Rebbe, see how far you get with this. And Mila, can you stop the recording? I don't see where I can do that. Okay. So just for the sake of the people who are watching the recording, I'm just going to go scroll through this, which is this worksheet that I think that is important just for the knowledge base of chapter 1. So these are the questions. All right. Okay. So let's just try and get some feedback about, you know, where you were able to get to. What did it seem like too much information? Is this helpful? Just some general feedback about your process rather than immediately going into answers. Sarah Ginsburg, can you give us some feedback? You're muted.
I'm glad you called on me. I think it's very good to go over things, though I found that it's a lot of material to do in half an hour, because I was starting to read, I started reading everything from the beginning. And of course, I have a better understanding now than, you know, before we started, but not good enough. So I'm having questions. As I go along, I see the details that I don't really understand. So is it good? For sure it's good. Is it better to do it, you know, one-on-one, or maybe a group of 2 or 3, maybe, and maybe shorter, because if we want to cover material, half an hour is not going to be enough.
Okay. Look, you know, what I did was that worksheet is, you know, it's very long, but I didn't know how quick, you know, some people may be able to go through it very quickly, and for others, it's very short. So I'm not saying that you have to finish the whole worksheet in half an hour. We just want to engage in this process and see what is needed. For sure, it's not, you know, it's not something that's expected in half an hour. Maybe I should have been clear about that.
From reading it, from where I got until it's like such a promising thing, the iyun and the idbonenut. It's like, wow, do it. You're going to get very far. But what are we going to get? So I'm having some questions, but maybe it's not for now.
What are you going to get from the
No. Yeah, here, if you want me to go to that question, to be specific, I'm trying to understand. I'm reading it again and trying to understand. Should I bring the question now or not really? Go
You can
ahead.
answer the question and then we'll
Okay.
necessarily
So,
bring it up.
yeah, about koach hamaskil, right? So there is a mashal, and the mashal is, I'm jumping already to koach hamaskil because this is where I'm stuck a little bit. The mashal is from a Mayan, and so we said from Mayanot that come from the earth, and we said that there are two aspects. One is the Mayan that is revealed, and one is the Giddim that are in the earth, right? And then what is a nimshal? So to the Mayan, the nimshal is barak hamavrik, the flash of lightning. And here comes the second question. The Giddim are, this is where I don't understand, is through Hamaka, you get to the התקללות השכל, this particular idea that I got, you're going to get it to be מתקלל, to be included in the origin of it. So I didn't understand that. But
So
What do you think the origin?
okay, Mila, I'll just answer and then I'll let you answer. I'm glad that you bring up the question. I just want to point out that when you do this work, that's when you begin to have questions.
Yeah.
Then you start to do the birur, and then you can start to ask a question, because up until then it's so derech klal that we don't know enough to ask a question. So that's the process. And I'm not sure that we necessarily need to, go into that particular prat right now, that particular detail, but it's good to see, it's like we talk about when you start to get interested in it. There's an aliveness about it.
right.
Okay, Mila, you wanted to respond?
Yeah. So he says we hit kalalut in the origin, right? What do you think the origin of Chachma?
You muted, Sarah. You muted.
Remember,
Well,
the Mayan is coming from
koach hamaskil?
beautiful.
No. Yeah.
So it's
So
yeah.
here, על ידי היגיעה, through the יגיעה, your פועל, one is פועל in כוח המשכיל, that it is שורש and מקור לנביאה, okay, that I understand. פועלים בכוח המשכיל, שורש ומקור. Okay, I'm going to come across it. I don't see it now.
No, you're right. So the question is, what is it? What do you think is it? What is in Koach HaMaskil? It's basically what we're talking about, these three levels. There is a world of Bina, there's a world of Chachma, and then there's a world of Koach HaMaskil. It's like this three layers of reality, three layers of consciousness. Okay? So then what is it? Like the Bina is a yesh, is an understanding, clarity, systematizing things, so on and so forth. Then there is explanation of a concept. Yeah. Then there is Chachma. What is Chachma? Chachma is the concept in its pure, undiluted way. Right? Is the seeing of it. And then there's a Koach HaMaskil, which is a pool of unlimited amount of Chachmas. Right? And the consciousness shifts from a very concrete to a more abstract. Right? Between the Bina and the Koach HaMaskil. So it's this shift in not necessarily the quantity of information, but it's the quality of thinking. Yeah, it's a left brain versus right brain. Yeah, and versus the whole source of intellect. Yeah, and this is the mashal, right? So we going from the river to the Mayan, and from Mayan to the depth of the Mayan, which is through the Giddim, as he says, into the Koach HaMaskil.
So I just needed Oh, here I am. I just needed הבט התכללות השכל הפרטי בלמעלה מן השכל. What does it mean to include the שכל פרטי in למעלה מן השכל, שנקרא מעיין סתום?
About a concrete. Chokhmah is a concrete concept, right? But it's streaming from somewhere. It's streaming from the higher than the intellect, right? So where is it coming from? So you're going beyond that limitation of a specific concept. You're going to the makor of that specific concept, that now you are the master of that place, that now any concept can come down based on your ratzon, and the ratzon is above the seichel, right? So you're no longer a subject of inspiration. Oh, a concept came to my mind, and now I'm thinking about it, and now I'm developing it. You are the master of originating it, originating your own ideas upon your request, upon your desire. We're not used to this because how many of us are on the level of Mamik, right? But just to know that every single person has it within himself, this originating powers, it's already a remedy. Partially, it's like, wow, that's so beautiful.
Wow. Yeah.
Because we are used to thinking that it's something outside of us, right? The whole chapter 1 is truly showing how every single Jew has everything within himself. It's not outside. The knowledge is not outside of you. And in the Geula, we will reveal that we don't even need to have teachers anymore. We will not have teachers. That's one of the prophecies. Why we will not have teachers? Because we'll be able to activate it from within.
Wow.
So I'm going to ask one more person for feedback just to get an idea. I think what Mila is emphasizing is so profound, is that the movement from Bina to Chokhmah, which can only take place through Iyun, is really a shift in consciousness. You're not dealing with knowledge anymore. You're dealing with a completely different way of experiencing the information. And that's what we haven't really been able to touch, because we're still really just stuck in the left brain process. But, that's at least my question really becomes, if, Mila, you're rolling your eyes. Did I say the wrong
I'm
thing?
rolling. I was actually, all of a sudden, as you were speaking about it, the first mashal that is given, I was not rolling my eyes. I was thinking, by the way, do you know why we roll our eyes? I just recently found out.
We're thinking, we're trying to remember.
No, it depends. I just heard is you want to go to the alpha brainwave. Apparently, when a person is alpha brainwave, he rolls up his eyes. And I thought about sumarom enechem, right? Yeah, anyway. No, I just came to my mind. I was like, yeah, I remembered that the first chapter was was the mashal, is a building. That's exactly what we're doing. Is imagine for example, I went to Kherson, right? I saw the Tzion of Rabbi Paracher, right? And let's imagine I'm gonna sit down one day and I'm gonna write describing how his Tzion looked like. I'm gonna write and write and write and write, and my experiences and how we went in, and the building looked like that, and you had this type of bricks and this color and the style and everything else, right? As I'm gonna be telling you all this, you're gonna be building a picture in your brain. That's just naturally what we do, right? But it's incomparable if I'm just gonna buy you tickets and you go and visit there and see for yourself. You understand? It's different. It's very different. It's two different. Over there, when you're going to go and you're going to see the building, and you're going to be inside of that building, you no longer need my explanations because you're there. You're going to be experiencing the reality as opposed to hearing it through my kalim. Does that make sense? So this is the difference between Bina and Chachma. One is explaining the details so you could have an idea about such a building. But obviously, it's not the same when you actually see the building and you're physically present there. You are experiencing it. So that's what we're talking about. And it's a huge shift. No matter how much I'm going to tell it to you, it's not necessarily going to be what it is when you actually see it yourself, right? And that's about any experience, even spiritual experiences, right? Like Arizal wrote his vision that would take him, I don't know, he said he saw something that it would take him 70 years just to express. And how long will it take us to understand what he just expressed for 70 years? Okay.
Mila, I like to intervene and say the Bina does prepare the purpose, because just because you see something doesn't mean that you actually understand the purpose and what this Indian is benefiting you. When you're putting into the words, it puts a kavana to it. And then, so by going over there and understanding what you're going and the purpose and who he was, it's preparing you, it's introducing you. And then when you see it for yourself, then you can use the preparation. So you do need the words. And in some ways, that's the Bina is even higher than Chachma.
Amazing, beautiful. Because Bina does what? Thank you, Tzipi, for bringing this out. Because a lot of times we see things, but it goes right above our head, right? We experience things and it goes right above our heads, right? Meaning, how could that be? Isn't seeing is better than actually, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes seeing, it's so much revealing that it just goes over our kalim. Now, when we hear somebody expressing to us, right? We build our consciousness around it. And then when we experience, we already have the tools to receive this light. Yeah? Does that make sense? And also, let's say I went to this cave, right? And I'm going to tell you all the nuances of it. On this side is this, on that side is this. Pay attention, you're going to get through this entrance because of this, right? Meaning I'm going to give you my 2 cents in it. Okay? And prepare you. So when you're going to experience, you're going to appreciate that much more. Why? Because first of all, you already have familiarity, and you're also going to have a circuitry. Your tvuna is going to be there, right? So when the light of your vision, whatever else you're experiencing, is going to descend upon you, you're going to be like, oh, that's what you meant. That's that. Does that make sense? So because the Bina becomes the Keli for that revelation. And the more Rechavas of Bina you have, the vaster your knowledge base is. When experience is coming, you know where you have the Keli to deal with it, as opposed to shutting down or completely missing it altogether. Okay, so yes, Tippy, you're right. That's why the whole first chapter shows us the beauty of Bina, because ultimately it's sourced much higher. If it could become a keli for our Pnimis Nukudas Alev, our Bina Liba, obviously shows the originality of its source is much higher. Then yes, definitely, Tippy. That's a great point.
So I just want to get feedback from one more person. Yoni, do you want to tell us your relationship to this process of the worksheet? You're muted, so you need to unmute. Or
okay, so over a few weeks, I've been going over Miller's little 18-minute recordings, and I'm on like number 6. So it helped me with the first few questions, but it's really right in the beginning. And whenever I get to Hamakasadas and what was the other one? That sounds like Ma'amik. I get completely confused, and but I'm not. But like part of me feels like maybe I should just stop doing this class and just go over everything over and over and over until I can like remember it. So I'm not sure. I don't know what to do. Then I feel like, but then I'm going to miss out on this, and then I'll be even more behind. But I am enjoying going over it very slowly like that, and also learning the words and the language. Like I find that fun.
Nechama asks, thanks, Yoni. Nechama asks, what is Yoni referring to when she says the 18-minute recordings? So we put up onto the Google Drive something that Mila had done prior to us starting this class 2 years ago, where Mila reads and translates for 18 minutes in a recording, paragraph by paragraph of chapter 1, and then also going into chapter 2 as well. And it's a useful way to do a quick review. If you don't want to watch like a 1.5-hour class, you can just go and get the pshat, but you're getting the Hebrew and the English together, and Mila explains a little bit as well. And so, yeah, it's a useful way to do fairly quick review. Okay, so I'm not quite sure what we should do with this worksheet. I don't feel like we should necessarily go through the answers at this stage. Mila, because the idea, do you feel that you could take this workshop and, do it worksheet and do it as homework, or is that still asking too much? You can do it as homework. And maybe next week we'll come back and go through the answers. How about that? We're not getting too much response. Maybe people can put into the chat if you feel that that's doable. Just yes or no.
So, Naria, are you saying that all the answers are found in the text?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes.
Also,
yes.
your summaries and everything are very helpful.
Right. So we have, there are a couple things. There's the summaries, and for a lot of the things, there's actually also something called Hebrew terms, where I just, give you like the basic definitions of Chochmah, Bina, Das. I didn't go into Hamakasadat and Maimek, but I did most of the work for you some time ago. And that's also on the Google Docs. So you can, it's like a cheat sheet with a lot of the terminology, and it's mainly to do with Chochmah, Bina, Das, goes through Chush, and then stops, because I stopped it because I didn't feel anybody was using it. Otherwise I would have continued. Yeah, so let's.
I don't feel that it's intellectually so healthy to speed read and like, okay, the definition of this is, it feels to me like the opposite of the whole kavanah. Like, okay, we're going to go through the whole thing and write down the definition. Sort of, I feel like if I didn't get it now, like now speed reading and writing down a quick definition, maybe I'm wrong. Again, I'm not the teacher, maybe I'm wrong. I feel like I would be doing myself a disservice. I feel like I have to either make a decision to properly go through it, but speed reading for the quick and easy definition. So why did I do all these months?
Okay,
I
so
feel like it's very helpful, those definitions, because I'll be reading and they're very clearly like they in a block, so I can page through my notes quickly and see, like, quickly look up a definition of something while I'm like reviewing like a word that I don't know, and it's right there.
I mean, they are, I'll tell you what it is. Okay, I know it wasn't planned for this class, but I think I'll answer Saratova. I tried partially answering it in my message there about the elementary students. The road to Chochmah, which means experiencing the concept, really lays through analytical mind, through Iyun. Again, we could kind of, trick ourselves. And I'm going to use the word trick because, it reminds me when I'm going to go on a diet, where I need to count what I eat, be accountable for it, and all this nitty-gritty, my macros, my all that, and the water intake and all that. This is a lot of details. And once in a while, when I really feel like, okay, Mila, you need to lose your 10 pounds, and I'm going to be like, okay, now we need to do that. There is a thing in me says, oh, well, there is something which is called intuitive eating. Yeah. That's an escape, because there is a stage where, your body is not healthy enough to do proper intuitive eating. And therefore you need to really divide it by, all the elements of really, truly, following a specific diet. Okay, don't get me wrong, right? That's pertaining to diet. And it's just a lot of nitty-gritty details. Drink water in this, space your meals between this and that. And this is all left brain stuff. Okay. And we tend to escape from that because we want to live in a state of inspiration, right? And which is beautiful, live it. But if we not getting the results that we wish, if we're not getting the results, I'm saying something very truthful because my kids started bickering. Okay, that's how I know when we say something important. It's this stage where you're like, you're not getting the results. So why are you still hoping, wishful thinking about your intuitive eating? It didn't help you for the past 2 years. But it's just like a circle of thinking, kind of protecting me from going into unknown, to going beyond my comfort zone. Does that make sense? So the same thing is when it comes to doing his bonus, right? We're not used to really experiencing those things that we would like to experience, that are being discussed in the first chapter. We're not used to it. So yes, it will start with analyzing, the same way how my student who doesn't really want to put up the work, they'll learn how to read Sukkim properly and circle his prefixes and suffixes in Chumash. And he is in his wishful thinking, oh, well, one day I'm going to grow up and I'm going to figure this out. It's not going to happen. Yeah, because that's just the reality. The reality is that if you want to move qualitatively different from one level of operation to the next level of operation, you would have to engage in something uncomfortable, as counting your calories or macro, blah, 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 or this boy who needs to do circling the prefixes and suffixes and all that stuff. Now, good news that you don't always have to do that. I don't circle my prefixes and suffixes anymore. Okay, it's a stage where I would have to do that, but it's not that for the rest of my life I'm going to be engaging in this. So the same thing is here. it's very nitty-gritty. Yes, we need to write definitions. We need to be very specific. We need to pay attention. 1 second, somebody really is trying to get into this room. Okay, yeah, you could go in, but you cannot be back. I understand. Okay, in the middle of something, you could just relax it. Okay, so yeah, it's a temporary measure. So we wrap our mind around the concept. Yes, it will be intellectually. I don't know, maybe Melech HaMashiach will be able to infuse us with few brain cells in order for us to, I don't know how this guy is going to do it. But I'm talking about, but the work from Lemata Lemala starts with this work. Now, I see Tivi says that it doesn't need to be discomfort. It's possible to be completely enjoyable. It's true, but it's a matter of perspective. It's like, you know, when you do your exercises, you could do your exercises, oh my gosh, I have to do this, and roll your eyes as a teenager. Or you could say, hey, I'm going to do my exercises, and probably Hashem actually creates this whole cocktail of, hormones that give us the boost and energy, and endorphin is being released by all the sports guys, right? And those who do exercises, that we start feeling better, more energetic, and blah, blah, blah. But still, the initial part, sometimes it's uncomfortable. It doesn't always have to be uncomfortable, but it just, it's stepping out of your comfort zone, and our attitude will determine whether that's going to be enjoyable or whether that's going to be something that we're going to push ourselves to do. And it's really a matter of an attitude, because at anything we could look at like, oh my gosh, again I have to do this, or like, well, that's just what it is, and I'm going to make fun out, make it an enjoyable thing. But it's really our attitude. And I think pertaining to this work, why do we have to go through those details? Can't we just, when it's not a firm decision, and I think that's where we could exercise our das, okay? It's not a firm decision when it's like flimsy, then we roll our eyes and we try to get ourselves out of it. And it's like, why do I have to do this, blah, blah, blah. Maybe there's another diet out there that I don't have to work so hard. Maybe I could do this, blah, blah. But the bottom line, the core of all diets is discipline. And I know we hate this word, but the core of all diets is being conscious of what we eat. So the same thing is here. The core of any growth process is our consciousness, is being conscious. Now, whether we could make it enjoyable or we could make it suffering, it's already our personal choice. But stepping out of comfort zone feels a little bit uncomfortable. Some people enjoy feeling uncomfortable and saying, yes, amazing, I could just shed my old kalim and I'm acquiring new kalim right now, and I'm just going to breathe through it. And some will say, oh my gosh, I'm suffering, this is so uncomfortable, and all that stuff. But there is an element of something new happening. And how we are readily accept that, it's, really depends on our attitude. So I don't know if
Please excuse me. I'm not talking about discipline whatsoever. And again, my opinion is not valid because, like, who cares? You're the teachers, do whatever you want to do. I just have my small opinion. I feel like if I'm going to go through a list, like it's going to say in English, Chachma is blah, and Bina is blah, 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 and I'm going to write down a whole bunch of English words according to the definition, is it going to prepare me to move to chapter 3? No. In other words, it's all like words for me. It won't, unless let's say, it's not going to prepare me for chapter 3 by going through some kind of an English thing that will give me, you might as well just give us the definitions now. We're not going to get any further.
Do it in Hebrew. Nobody tells you to do it in English.
I understand. So that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work going through all of chapter 1 in 1 week. I understand we did it already 50 times. I get it.
It's the thing as my students is going to say, how by me circling my prefixes and suffixes is going to help me understand the message of the pasuk? You literally just it's exactly the same thing. And I will tell him, or her? Yes, it will. Because once your prefixes and suffixes are automatized in your brain, you no longer have to think about them. You're just going to be
not automatized in your brain, but they're not. But they're not automatized in your brain. In other words, so just give us the list and we're done. We can start chapter. You understand? I don't feel like I'm going to get any further unless I really.
So here's the thing. I already did give you the list. And it doesn't.
So we're done.
Wait a minute. It doesn't. It's very different if you write the list than if I write the list. When I wrote the list, I did the work. Where if you read the list, it's a very different process than going through and looking for the answer for yourself and writing it down. It's using it. It's you doing some yagir. Just reading it, unless you're going to memorize it, it's a very different process. Now, we are asking ourselves a lot. This is why we did this worksheet, is how are we meant to teach this? Like, how can I help you to learn this? Now, I'm saying this worksheet is there pretty much for people who are not doing the Iyun. Because what I'm saying is, in a way, I'm saying, look, chapter 1, if you take it as a story, there's a story in chapter 1. Reb Hillel is telling us a story. Now, there are a lot of details in the story. And if you do Iyun, all the details will be important. But there's also a skeleton to the story. Now, imagine like a fictional story or a real story, doesn't matter. But there's also a spine to the story, like they're the main characters. And you can forget about some of the details. Not all the details are that important. But if you want to kind of remember the basic story of chapter 1, these are the characters. There's Bina, there's Chochma, there's Das, there's Amakasadas. And in order to really go on to the next stage in the story, at least you need to remember these, have a grasp on these, because what we experienced last week is that this concept of Amakasadas and Ma'amik is not, most people don't remember it. And so when we encountered it in the Mitzvah Rebbe, everything dissolved because we're talking about something we don't know what it is. So going back into the Mitzvah Rebbe really just took us back into the question of what is necessary to know from chapter 1. And so this is an attempt, it's an imperfect attempt. And I agree with you that, on some level, it diminishes what's meant to be done. But that's why I explained to you right at the beginning. This is Iyun. If you want to do Iyun, it'll take you to the Oineg of your neshama. But if you're not doing Iyun, this is at least what you need to know in order to have a basic grasp on the story of chapter 1, so that you can then have some kind of foundation on which to build the next level of the building. And then at some point, each and everybody in their own way, this is the beginning of the Iyun process as well. And the beginning of the Iyun process has an action element to it. So either you need to be writing, pretty much doing like creating lists or creating definitions, but using action in that first stage is pretty useful. And that's, for me, that's when I created the summaries. That was my action of trying to get a grip. So now this is a lower level of just saying, okay, this is the spine. If you want to go and do Iyun, that's fantastic. But this is a relevant, I think, and an appropriate part of the process. At least this. These are the main characters. And if you don't know who the main characters are, then, then it's a problem to really go forward. So this is an attempt to help you to go and have a look in whichever, we've got many different ways you can look at it, including the new English translation that I shared, which is much more user-friendly. There's summaries. there's like summary of summaries.
Yeah,
Go
there's
and
also a mind map, if anybody ever used it, you know, that just shows the flow of the ideas. And sometimes, you know, we want to kind of like remove the words and just see the flow. So that would be helpful as well. It goes to a certain place in the first chapter, and Bezrat Hashem I will be working on. And if somebody could help me in finishing the first chapter, if you could just continue the diagram, I will definitely adapt it into the work.
all,
Sorry. So one last question. Sorry, and I bet you already said it, and I in my mind I just didn't hear it. So if I decide I'm going to finally sit down and properly learn chapter 1, like really do it well. Let's say I decide, you know, I'm going to do it. Okay, over the rest of the summer. Good. So, and when I get stuck on a term and I'm learning, like yesterday, I said, okay, what is Hamakas? What is Minus? So I took the text and I was like, oh, it's not as easy to understand as I thought. Then I would want to go to, you know, finding out, asking you guys, or maybe you're saying you have it in a page where you wrote Hamakas Hadas is this, Mimic is this. So, you know, like we have a dictionary. Like, what is this?
Don't utilize the group. You have a question, you do your Eon process, you have a question, ask it in a group. Guys, I'm still struggling between Hamakas Hadas and Mamik. Please share your ideas. What it will create.
But you're saying that you made definitions.
Oh yeah, we have the definitions. I think it's all on the Google Drive. You could just go up and take out whatever you need. I mean, Naria did a fantastic job with text and translations and summaries and her own translations, a user-friendly translation, summaries, the what do you call it?
I'm sorry, the way to get into the Google Drive, there's a link to the Google Drive that has everything, correct? I didn't know that. Imagine that's where I'm holding, that my mind is not focusing.
Like I'm telling
there's a Google Drive, you go on, it has everything.
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, you know, the bottom line is there will be this aspect of very formal, cold left brain analysis. That's how learning happens, from outside in. Okay, it doesn't stay there. After that cold analysis, there is a beautiful road inside into feeling the chayus, right? Remember the recent Hayom Yom from 20th of Tammuz I shared? In the beginning, it is intellectual. Then you feel the chayus, and then you feel the godliness. This is just the process Hashem created. Yes, spontaneously, we feel the chayus and godliness without the process. But that's all on the mercy of Hashem. But the way, the structured and organized Avodah is this way. And you know, I have to tell you, we really have to thank our Chabad Rebbeim for doing this for us. Because there is no Chassidus like that. In all other Chassiduses and Kabbalah, you have to be on the level of, you have to be on a spiritual and intellectual level to perceive Elokus. What Alter Rebbe did, and he was highly criticized for that, and Mittel Rebbe continued his work. What did he do? He brought it down that even like me and you could slowly go up the ladder, meaning he lowered the ladder. You know, like they have this fire escapes, and it's from the second floor and up. But then there is this ladder that you drop down. Do you know what I mean? That's what the Alter Rebbe did. Up until now, you have to be on a certain level to perceive a lakus. And the simple people like me and you were like, okay, at least we're going to do mitzvahs. What are we going to do? But what he did, he said, no, I want you to be able to go up the ladder as well. So he went up to the second floor, opened the ladder, and he dropped it down for us. And that's the intellectual piece. That's the Eon piece. Okay? That through working with a mind, which everybody has, we're not talking about spiritual status. We're not talking about any piety here. Just if you have peace of brain, you're able to climb up step by step into that second floor, so quote, into that level where you could perceive Elokus through your own being. And this is a huge chesed. And you know how criticized he was. And there's a whole famous story where a little piece of his Chassidus, somebody was like burning it down. One of his Chassidim, somebody like put it in a fire, and it flew out of the pipe and landed on the floor. And one of his colleagues were passing by, and they saw that piece of Torah, Secrets of Torah, that the Alter Rebbe wrote, or like it was copied from one of his students, not exactly sure what that piece was. And they got very upset with Alter Rebbe. And they said, this is the reason. This is the reason that you're teaching. And they came to rebuke, and there's an account of Mittel Rebbe, how he remembers how these three, colleagues of the Alter Rebbe came to his room and what heated discussions they were having. And that's exactly what they were saying. You are bringing Chassidus to the simple people like me and you. I'm talking about me and you, not them. Okay, the simple people, look what they do. They don't appreciate. They're not on a level of being careful with it. Look what happened. It's on the floor. Okay, and Alter Rebbe was defending his position. It was mamash mesiras nefesh. And this is just, this is what we're talking about. This is exactly what we're talking about, is that anybody, you don't have to be on a level. You don't have to be an intellectual person. You don't have to be anybody. You just have to have brain. At Chabad, that's why he calls it Chabad. When you know how to utilize your Chabad, you will get to your Bina Liba. And this is a Chiddush. That's why a new soul like Alter Rebbe had to descend into this world to show us this derech. Up until Alter Rebbe, this derech was not revealed. You have to be on a specific level. You have to elevate yourself through your own avoda, which you don't even know how to get there. Your neshama has to be on a particular level to be serving Hashem on that level. So Hashem should reveal himself to you. But Alter Rebbe changed that. Alter Rebbe changed that paradigm. And this is why me and you right now here, we can have this discussion as an ordinary, simple folks. And think how to do avodas hamoichin.
So Mila, I'm going to suggest that that we end the class here, and if people have that half hour that they would normally put aside, that you continue to work with this worksheet and just do it, because I think it doesn't make that much sense now to go into the Mittel Rebbe. I think it's too much headspace.
No, for sure. It's definitely, that specific piece of the Mittel Rebbe where he talks the difference between Hamaka of Bina and Hamaka Sadas will bring us into even further, into the further questions. And we really literally have only, we would, be going till 12 anyway. And I know that one of our participants was, a little bit conscious as to amount of work this workshop, the amount of time this workshop actually is taking. And maybe, we should really be more disciplined in that regards and really do an hour and a half, if that will help you to do that extra hour of Iyun. That would be amazing. If anybody has any questions pertaining to this, that would be the great time. And if not, we'll just wrap it up.
Yes, I wait. Yes, tell me that. Wait, Maimek and Hamaka Sadas. I'm really totally cheating. Can you give a definition? Is that okay? Like a one sentence definition. Maimek. I understand. Maimek is between one second. Hamaka Sadas is between Bina and Chachma, and Maimek. I understand Maimek. We're connecting the Chachma to its source, to Kaya Chamasko. I think I got that right. And Hamakas Adas, I thought was connecting the Bina to Chachma, but I think not. I think it's a little more complex than that. Is that a one sentence definition?
Mila, you want to answer? Or are you waiting for?
I'm waiting for you.
Oh, okay. Oh, you know, as far as I understand, Hamakas Hadas, it's that simple. It's between Chochmah and Bina. That is the das that connects Chochmah to Bina. And you were correct about Maimek. Maimek is what activates the Koach HaMaskil to activate the Oimek of Chochmah and Bina. So it's pretty much what you said, that it's the transition between Chochmah and that which is above Chochmah, which is the Koach HaMaskil.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's huge, because then I can move on. And one more question. Again, I don't think you can answer it now. You know, from the original days of learning, and also from, you know, Shir Malka Ala Shalom, I developed a terror of what's called dimyainus. I developed, and I have my own fear of when I'm learning my marm with people and they say, oh, this means that, and I say, you can say whatever you want, unless I see it 100% by that Rebbe. Once I get an incorrect definition in my head, it's stuck. Everybody has that. Once I put a definition in my head and it's not quite right, I'm stuck with it. It's hard to then erase that. So I'm always kind of nervous, especially in Shari Yichud, of saying, oh yeah, I think it means this. And now it got somewhat stuck in my mind, and it's going to be, my mind is no longer fresh to take in the concept. I can't think of the English word, but I'm already imprinted. It's already slightly, I'm not going to say engraved, but imprinted on my mind. So I'm afraid to imprint the wrong definition in my mind, because then I have to undo all of that. So what you can say about that, I don't know. It's like the catch-20, you're walking past and your sock keeps getting stuck on that nail. It's that place where you get stuck every time of like, I don't want to falsely imprint my mind with the wrong definition.
So my 2 cents to this is that the whole Avodah Samoichin is compared to, it's actually used, this analogy by the Rebbeim, is Shviras Moach HaEven, is breaking the brain of stone. What do you mean breaking the brain of stone? We don't have brain of stone. But what we mean by that is that we naturally have a tendency to cement things. Okay? We have a tendency to give a definition, put it on a shelf, and say, "Whoo, Baruch Hashem, now I know." But it doesn't work like that, and I'll tell you why. Because Rebbeim have a chisel, okay, and they will very carefully, one way or the other, will chisel out that definition out of your brain. Okay, so there is a term in the world which is called open-minded. What does this mean? Open-minded means is that I keep my mind open. And I say to myself, at this stage of my development, this is what I understand about Chochmah. This is what I understand about Bina. And this is what I understand about anything. And I'm very firm, I could back it up. But at the same time, I'm ready to give it up for a higher level and a higher awareness and a higher definition, a more refined definition. Because no matter how sophisticated we think we are at this moment, we are very much yesh compared to the higher level of thinking, right? So if we're going to hold on like this, as a piece of our, I don't know, neshama to all the definitions that we're going to make right now, it's going to hinder our development. It's going to hinder our growth. We could say, this is what I understand at the moment. Tomorrow, I could just easily let go of what I understand today for a new higher level of consciousness to emerge. That's it. So we never cement definitions. We never cement things. We just say, at this given moment, this is what's revealed to me. Tomorrow, it's going to change. It's going to change. So don't hold on to your definitions. Okay? Meaning at first chapter, remember, he did it in the first chapter. He said there is no Iyun by the Mashpia. Remember that? When he first explaining the relationship between, Talmud and the Mashpia. Then later on, he said, well, you know what? If you look deeper, there is Iyun by the Mashpia. So, but if you don't have that flexibility to say, okay, but why did he needed to do that in the first place? Not just to play and manipulate our brains, but simply because at that moment, this is what we say to a child. Okay? Like, this famous Hayom Yom, where one of the Rebbeim, I think Tzemach Tzedek came crying to the Alter Rebbe, please correct me, about how it's possible that the best years of Yaakov were in Mitzrayim. Okay. And the Rebbe answered him because he went and he built a yeshiva there. But truly, you know that it doesn't really answer his question. The true answer to the question was, V'yitron ha'or min ha'choshech. Because he was going into the depth of klipa, of tuma, his avodah there was on a higher level, and therefore his best years were in Mitzrayim. But you know what? The Rebbe specifically didn't choose to answer that way, and he chose the other answer, that he built the yeshiva there. For what reason? Because on that level, even the Rebbe as a child wouldn't be able to comprehend the complexity of Yitron Ha'or Min HaChoshech. And therefore, for his level, that's the answer he got. Okay? Obviously, when he grew, he realized a new depth to things. He realized that through going through a dark place, through the darkness, you could actually have a more refined and more sophisticated, awareness of Hashem. But for the child, it's not shayach, this. Because a child could mistakenly believe that it's okay to do Averis. It's okay to go into darkness. No, it's not okay. If you're positioned in that, yeah. But it's a sophisticated thing. So what I'm trying to say is that on different levels, the Rebbeim gonna tell us what's needed for that time. For that part of the first chapter, this is the information that was given to us that we need to work with. Now we graduate, we're gonna give you a little bit more complex things. And we're gonna graduate that, we're gonna go to a more complex things. And we should not hold on to how we perceive things, write them in our thing, on our heart, and calm down. No. On the contrary, it's fun. I take it personally. I get boring very easily. It's just my nature, right? I cannot do the same thing over and over, over and over, over and over. So for me, it's an adventure. That what I understood yesterday is no longer good. I have a new way of understanding. So for me, it makes it more interesting. Okay. So that just has, so therefore, it's a long answer to your question. I think whatever the definitions you have, it's good for now. But don't hold on to them, because they will be more refined versions of the definition, and sometimes even changed. And we should not feel like the whole world is collapsing just because now we have a better way of understanding things, a new way of understanding things. On the contrary, Baruch Hashem, because ultimately, Shar Yichud, as Divrei Elokim Chaim, and specifically as the key of Chassidus, okay, will unveil in front of us so many different depths that we were never had experience with. And therefore, we need to be flexible in our mind, not segmented. We need to let go of Mocha Even perceptions. Mocha Even meaning once you engrave something in stone, it doesn't change, right? But in a true godly brain, you could always do upgrading your system, right? Upgrading your computer to a new version. And we do that. That's just what it is. That's how the world is.
I think that Chassidus and Maimek is a good example, because for most people, before coming to Shara Yechud, all we knew about was the dat that goes Chochma Bina Dat, meaning the dat that connects Bina to the emotions. And now we're having to say, well, that's dat Tachton. And now we're going to tell you about dat Elyon. And there are two levels to it. And for some people, that's like, wait a minute. You could say, no, I can't hear about this because I've got my definition of dat stuck in my head for 20 years. And so then I think the important thing is to make sure that your definitions are coming from a text and not from hearsay, or not from like, places where there's interpretation, too much interpretation. As long as you're working with a text, you can grow your definitions. And that's also not to say that you shouldn't have a definition. So here, this worksheet, we're asking you to write up your definitions, because you can only expand your definition once you have one. If you don't even have one, you can't change it. You can't, let it grow into something else. But, these are foundations. So there's even a beautiful mashal that we learned in chapter 1 that I think speaks to this, which is about the depth of the aquifer. So the deeper the aquifer is in the ground, so the more the water has to go through the earth. And as it goes through the earth, it gets cleaned and the water gets more and more clean. And he talks about it there, that the more Eon you do, so the more you clean up your mistakes. Because the way I understand something on my first reading is not going to be the way I understand it on my second or third or 50th reading, if I get there. So, it's like, that's why I really liked it when Sarah started asking questions, because that's the cleaning up of the mistakes. That's the water going through the many layers of purification, because you're going deeper. That's the Yuan process. So it's all, it's all part of the process. All right. I think we're done for today. It's a lot to think about. And B'ezrat Hashem, do the worksheet, and then we can, go over the answers of the worksheet. But it doesn't mean anything to go over the answers unless you've done the work. It's really about you doing the work. So try to do the work. At least that.
Sure,
Thanks.
sure. Beautiful. Thank you for joining. And any questions, any insight, please post in the group.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.